lanes, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes, made lots of mistakes, taking shots, skipping breaks, feeling lost, feeling great, popping off, singing straight, never stopped, never changed. All the squad here to play, and I've got something to say, yeah. I work hard each and every day, I get lost in the words I say. I don't push pause, no, I push play.
Welcome into Pinky and Pinups. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see. Comments. Welcome in, Newman Gaming. It's good to see you. Yay! I missed you. Let's go hit that like button. Okay, let's get busy. So, today's topic is what does DV mean in law? And what DV may mean to you may be something different than what it means in law. So I'm going to go over some topics and do some explaining. So we'll start with the explanation of or the definition of domestic violence. The term domestic violence refers to abusive behavior in personal relationships, as far as it could be marriages, it could be family members, um, with interpersonal relationships, basically. It can be um, an immediate partner or even past partner. So, that means when, like, a partner can intimidate sorry, I'm tongue-tied today, intimidate you, to gain power or control over you, and vice versa. This could be you, on the other hand, that is the abuser. This is often thought to occur between just married couples, but it can be within any relationship. This could be with any family member, parents, siblings, even your own children can become abusive to you. Domestic violence includes physical, sexual, psychological, emotional abuse, as well as threats of physical violence or even economic and violence, which is, financial abuse. These behaviors are intended to intimidate, frighten, terrorize, humiliate, manipulate, coerce, blame, injure the other person. To explore this concept, consider the following domestic violence definition. So I'm going to go over the definition. Welcome in, Johnny Yarbo. It's good to see you. Wes Robinson, it's so good to see you. Welcome, welcome. So, domestic violence is a noun, it is the act of something. So, this is the act of violence and abuse against another person living in the same household, or they or just immediate family member or intimate partner. This originated back in the 1890s. It's an English term. Historically, domestic violence really became like a thing back in the 1800s. Violence and abuse committed against women within the confines of the marriage was implicitly accepted as husband's rights. So if you go back to the Bible, um, Wes. So if you go back to biblical speaking, the big old book, the woman was supposed to, obey her husband, and if she didn't, they would become very abusive. Um, it wasn't until about the 1970s domestic violence started gaining recognition as actually a crime of violence, and it took another 20 years for the federal state legislation to catch up, providing protection against serious punishment for these acts. While the term was initially used to label physical assault against women by their husbands, the fact is the acts of domestic violence are committed by both men and women. Women are just as capable of abusing their spouses as men are. Um, I will be going over a case that it really caught my attention this morning, and I will be going over that case only because the woman is the offender in this case. And so I think it'll be very interesting for all of you and, you know, enjoy learning a little bit more about it. So domestic violence is the leading cause of serious injury to women between the ages of 15 and 44. And more than 30% of women murdered each year are killed by their former husbands or boyfriends. Unfortunately, statistics regarding domestic violence committed by women against their male partners are within the same sex relationships. and are scarce, and these individuals are less likely to report such acts due to the ridicule of them being in the same sex relationship. While substance abuse and stresses of poverty contribute to the prevalence of domestic violence, it occurs in all culture and social, economic, educational, and religious environments. So, we're going to go over what is domestic violence. Many forms of abuse fall under the umbrella of domestic violence, in addition to hitting, shoving, kicking, slapping, throwing objects. Domestic violence applies to intimidation, domination, stalking, and other illegal acts. Quite a few of us on YouTube have come across the stalking aspect of um, domestic violence, or just intimidation. And that's, the stalking, the intimidation. Um, what else would be a good word? Illegal acts would be another good term for, a lot of things that happen on YouTube. So we'll go over physical violence first. So physical abuse includes physical acts of shoving, grabbing, pinching, hitting, slapping, pulling hair, and other acts that could cause injury. Denying medical care, forcing alcohol, drug abuse upon someone, restraining them from seeking help is also considered physical abuse, like where you're trying to get help for a situation, but, they're restraining you from being able to do so. This includes, being locked in basements, being, held against your will. Sexual abuse, or SA, we normally use the term SA due to, YouTube's, uh, trigger words. So sexual abuse includes coercion, sexual contact, rape, including marital rape. Now, a lot of people are kind of like, "Oh, can is that really a thing? Can that really happen?" Yes, it can. No means no, regardless if you're married or not married. Attack on the sexual body parts, forcing sex following physical violence, and sexual demeaning another. Now, sexually demeaning another is, in the middle of the act, just being very derogatory to the partner. "Oh, Lady O, it's good to see you. Welcome in." Let's go over emotional abuse. Emotional abuse involves the destruction of the person's self-worth or self-esteem, which is a little bit harder to, prove in a courtroom. It's not like you have physical marks on your body. It's emotional scarring that's on your heart. With that long pause, it's just it is very hard to show or prove that type of abuse, unless you have been seeing counselors, therapy. And if you are going through that type of abuse, I highly suggest, going and getting therapy, because that therapy can be used in a court setting. Emotional abuse emotional abuse, it consists of, name calling, constant criticism, disparaging remarks on an individual's ability or talents, damaging an individual's relationship with his or her children. This is another thing that happens in a lot of interpersonal relationships is one of the spouses, if they have children, the other spouse or other partner becomes highly jealous of, the children, and that is abuse. You can't let your significant other dictate how you are with your children. That's between you and your children. Your children are their blood. And when someone steps in and involves themselves to a point that you're losing contact with your children, that it's emotional abuse. Psychological abuse is also like, emotional abuse. It involves creating a fear or a sense of isolation and helplessness. Acts of physical abuse include causing a fear through intimidation, threatening to harm a spouse, a partner, children in the home, family, friends, your pets, or yourself. Also, intentionally isolating a person from their family, friends, school, work, or extracurricular activities. Economic abuse is kind of like self-explanatory. It's just someone trying to take control of your financial, your ability to provide for yourself if need be. Individuals exerting control over another individual, maintaining total control of financial resources without holding a partner's assets access to money or financial assets, or hindering or forbidding employment or education. So this is like, let's say you have a partner and you really want to go to college and they're like, nope, we're not going to help you with that. I mean, if that's your dream, if that's your desire to do something like that, that's still abuse. It sounds like so minute, but in the long term, it may be something that you regret later on, like, oh, I really didn't get to do that. My partner didn't let me. I know. Very well. Okay. While domestic violence is seen as a pattern of acts that constitute abuse, some acts are so malicious as to be considered criminal in and of themselves. These include the acts such as stalking, in, intentional endangerment, criminal coercion, kidnapping, unlawful and false imprisonment. False imprisonment, self explanatory. If there's any of these that you would like me to go over, please let me know and I will go back and, if, for instance, if you're not sure what false imprisonment is, I can go back and re explain. Arkansas, it's so good to see you. Mwah, my love. So, one of the main things to do, Tennille Susan, good to see you. How to obtain a domestic violence restraining order. So, pretty much in every jurisdiction, there um, is a legal aid office, and within that legal aid office, they have lawyers and they have, also pro bono lawyers, which we're going to do that on another stream. I'm gonna go into, helping you get, protective orders and pro bono lawyers for DV and SA. Moving on. So domestic violence laws enables victims of domestic violence have the ability to obtain restraining orders from the court, protecting themselves from any further abuse. Now, mind you, it is a piece of paper. It is not like it's like bars on your wall or on your windows and they can't get in. Yes, they still can. It just leaves them with the ability to be arrested and be charged and convicted for the crime of violating that order. But it does not stop them physically from contacting you in any type of way. While the exact process of obtaining a domestic violence restraining order varies slightly by jurisdiction, most involve obtaining an emergency protective order first. That is the most quickest way to obtain an order is through a emergency protective order, which is given without filing the service. They will give you an emergency protective order in the interim of having that other person served. If that other person has been arrested, they will be served while they're incarcerated. Typically, if it's their first offense, they're only going to be arrested for maybe 24 to 48 hours. Most involving obtaining an emergency protective order. Let's see here. So the EPO prohibits the perpetrator from approaching or contacting the victim for a specific period of time. Now, that time can be from, 2 weeks to in some jurisdictions, it can go on to till that person is physically served and they are able to attend court. Most, EPOs won't expire until that person has had their opportunity to defend themselves in court against your allegations of abuse. An application for domestic violence restraining order in some states use the term protective order, which may be filed with the court with no cost fees. They also have advocates there within the legal aid office that can also help you with those type of things, especially with the emotional side of going through and filling out the paperwork. A lot of times when you do have to attend and go in and fill out the paperwork, it's unnerving and you worry about, "Oh my gosh, what are they gonna say? What are they gonna do? How is this gonna play out in court?" And it can be very, nerve-wracking. And it will also your mind will play tricks on you, and it will try to, you know, make you not wanna get it, make you not want to pursue the issue, whether it's out of guilt or whether it's out of, the love for the other person, because just because they're abusive doesn't mean you don't love them. Biscuit, good to see you. Um, Doesn't necessarily mean that you don't love that person. It just means you don't like the way they treat you, and the way they are treating you is abusive. So, the forms that you will be filling out is basically, their general physique and a list of, incidents that happen. Do you have documentation of those incidents? And then remember to take those documents with you to court. If you don't have the evidence, it's hearsay. And hearsay a lot of times can be thrown out depending on your judge. A hearing will be scheduled within a few days where you and the judge will have the discussion. And then that temporary order will be in place until he is served or she is served uh, a motion to appear for the final order. If a final order is um, enacted. If a final order is, an option on the table. A lot of times women will go through this or men will go through this and then they'll drop it. They won't show up. And if you don't show up, it automatically will default and it will be dismissed. Let's see here. So a lot of orders will be like a no contact order or stay away order. A no contact order prohibits the perpetrator from approaching, attacking, stalking, calling, texting, emailing, or otherwise contacting you, the victim. A stay away order is also very similar to that, but it's also to stay a minimum amount of distance from you. Usually it's within 100 to 300 yards. And this will be from your home, your place of, your residence, your place of employment. If you have children, a place of their schools, place that they like daycare, parks that you frequent, those types of places. And you would need to list those items on that form so that they know that if that perpetrator comes in within those 100 yards or 300 yards, that they are in violation of the order, regardless if it's the temporary or the permanent. They can also order a move out order where within that order they will say, "Hey, the perpetrator needs to move out." Now, with that being said, depending on the state, a lot of times if they are the primary income, they are not allowed to turn off your phone, your electric, your water, your gas, any of those items, or not pay the rent. They are still required to handle those things. If they carry firearms or they have a concealed weapons permit, they are required to surrender any firearms, etc. Peaceful contact order is in situations where the parties have children in common. The abuser may be allowed to peaceful communicate with the victim for specific purposes only, usually regarding the care and transfer of the children. A lot of times, if the I will say probably at least 75% of the time, the children are on the order also, unless, the parent, the one, the oh, I'm drawing a blank. I'm nervous. Oh my gosh. That dude's beard. Welcome in, hun. It's good to see you. Um, the petitioner a lot of times will say, well, he's not abusive to the children, just me. So then, you're opening up that door for needing to have communication, but never lie. Lies will always come out. Okay, so let's see who all would be covered under the restraining order. Violence laws allow other people, in addition to the victim, to be covered by the domestic violence restraining order. Just who is protected by a single order is specified in the order. So within the order, it will state who is protected by the DVRO or TPO or EPO or RO. So, a DVRO can include family members or anyone whom is within the household or very close relatives that frequent the household can be also covered under the order, especially um, like say it's parents. Um, and a lot of times the perpetrator will try to contact your parents or closest siblings to be able to get to you. It will also, if you have pets, it can also protect your pets from abuse or or inflicting any kind of emotional or distress or fear. As far as child custody and visitation goes, when the victim and the abuser have children in common, a very specific order regarding children visitation will be included in the DVRO. This is usually a temporary order and it often specifies supervised visitations, especially if they have a history of domestic violence. With that being said, many jurisdictions consider if there's domestic violence against the other parent, then potentially they could become, violent with the children. And a lot of laws, according to your local statute, and you can check this, is um, it's against the your current local statute to give physical custody or legal custody of the children to someone who has committed a violent crime. And that's another reason why you need to make sure that you take care of all of your police reports, document everything. A lot of times, victims of domestic violence find themselves moving to another state to escape abuse. The full faith credit clause of the United States Constitution requires that a protective order issued by one state is upheld in any other state. So, if you ever come across the situation where you do have a domestic violence order, that domestic violence order is good in all 50 states. Do not let law enforcement tell you it's not. Um, I will go and dig up the code. I know I have it written down somewhere. I believe it's US statute 13 2 2 something, um, that protects you as a victim in any state, and law enforcement is required to uphold that US statute. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, hold on. Let me check chat real quick. I know I'm slacking you guys. I haven't missed anybody, have I? I love you all. Okay. So a lot of times we going back to the moving situation. So a lot of times we end up moving from our current location to get away from the violence. And if you have a protective order, that protective order will protect you in any state that you're in, any county, any state. So always make sure you keep it with you. If you lose a copy, contact the county. They'll send you another one. This helps prevent this helps protect the victim in the event that this abuser, stalks you or one of your family members in the new state. When you get to that new state, make sure that you register it with the sheriff's department. It's called a depository, and they can handle that for you to where that order is within, when they pull up your NCIC, I believe is what it's called, NCIC. It's a good idea for the victim to present a current protective order to the local law enforcement agency so they can keep a copy on file. The court in the new state may issue a new order specific to that jurisdiction. Um, Publicity. Brought by the O.J. Simpson case, a spotlight was shown on the issue of domestic violence in the 1990s, when the former professional football player O.J. Simpson was accused of and tried for murdering his wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ronald Goldman. Oh, sorry. While still together, the couple, oh, shoot. They. While still together, the couple had a history of reported domestic violence, including spousal battery and death threats. Although Nicole eventually left the marriage, it appeared that the pattern of abuse continued, finally resulting in her violent death. Although Simpson was acquitted for the murder charges, the view on the issue of domestic violence in the United States was changed forever. So, one thing I can say about the O.J. Simpson case was that it helped bring to light a lot of women that have gone through domestic violence, and they did started the Me Too movement and whatnot, which it just really helped open up that envelope for protection for women and men. Forgive me, I'm a lady, so I always say women. States began making changes in their judicial law and law enforcement systems to afford greater protections against domestic violence, including mandatory arrests at the time of the incident and harsher punishments. So, in most jurisdictions, as far as I know, in most jurisdictions, when there has been a domestic violence call, someone is going to be arrested, period. Whether it's you or the other person, someone they have to separate by law. They have to separate the two persons. Now, you can also file a civil suit for domestic violence. It's not always criminal. Some people mistakenly believe that if a person has been put on trial in criminal court, such as domestic violence charges, he or she cannot be tried for civil court for the same acts. This is two different courts. One is criminal charges. One is more. It's less punishment. It's like they don't get reprimanded punishment wise. It's more like a financial type of um, reimbursement. I guess is how I would explain it. Um, the Fifth Amendment prohibits trying an individual for the same charges in a criminal court, but that does not constitute not being able to try them in a civil court. Okay, so keep that in mind. You can get so say you have like psychological abuse, restitution, perfect word, Arkansas. Thank you. Um, so say you have like a bunch of medical bills that prove that, you have psychological trauma, pain and suffering, you can get financial reimbursement restitution. After the jury in the O.J. Simpson's murder trial found him not guilty, the victims of the family filed a civil lawsuit for wrongful death. Because in a civil lawsuit, the burden of proof is a much less stringent than a criminal court. It's not like beyond reasonable doubt type of situation. So the family was awarded like $85 million. Is there any questions to anything that I have stated thus far? The scale of let's put this up here real quick. The scale of justice are different from criminal to civil, correct? Exactly. Exactly. They're much more lenient. And it's a whole different ballgame. So, there was a reauthorization of the act in 2022, the Violence Against Women Act. Um, Bipartisan legislation passed by Congress as part of the omnibus appropriations package. Now, this was done by President Biden during his career, and it's supposed to be helping fight back against abusers of the abuse of power. That force that led him to write the Champion Groundbreaking Violence Against Women Act, which is the VAWA. Um, Hold on, I don't want to miss anything. You have to tip the scale away down to criminally, but with the civil, you can just slightly be tipped. Just right. It only has to be a little bit. Like you don't have to be. It doesn't have to be beyond reasonable doubt. DD is how I got my PTSD. Some of this wasn't known to me during that. And sometimes, that dude. Sometimes it takes a while for uh, like PTSD to like really kick in. You really don't realize it until something triggers it, and you're just like, well, like I'm having a small flashback, and it's unnerving. It really is, but it does help to talk about it. You, I don't know if you have, people that you can sit down with and discuss it with freely and not feel um, like you're weighing that other person down. But it's always good to be able to vent and get it off your chest. So there was a reauthorization in 2022 where they have changed up some of the verbiage in the VAWA. Which was originally passed in 1994. That also, I will be going over a stream on that also of going over the new laws and what um, Some of it's a little, I don't know, it's a little on shaky ground. The way they've worded it is it draws some concern for me. But I will go over a quick revamp. So the 2022 reauthorization of the VAWA strengthens this landmark law, including by reauthorizing all current VAWA grant programs until 2027, and in many cases, increasing the authorization levels, expanding special criminal jurisdiction of tribal courts to cover non native perpetrators of SA, child abuse, stalking, sex trafficking, assaults on tribal law enforcement officers on tribal lands, and supporting the development of a pilot project to enhance access to safety for survivors in Alaska Native villages. Thank you, Arkansas. Um, let's see here. Let me pop this up for her. Increasing services to support survivors from undeserved and marginalized communities, including the LGBTQ survivors of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault violence, stalking, funding survivor centers, community-based restorative practice services, and increased support for specific services in rural communities. Establishing a federal civil clause of action for individuals of intimate visual images are disclosed without their consent, porn bombing. Um, there's another term for it is porn revenge. I do believe corn revenge. I don't know, whatever you want, however you want to say it. Establishing a federal civil cause of action for individuals who um, use their intimate visual images. Those okay. Establishing a federal civil cause of action for individuals whose intimate visual images are being disclosed without their consent. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry about that. Okay, creating new national resources centers for cyber crimes against individuals. Hmm, revenge porn. That's it. Exactly. Supporting state, tribal, and local government effort to prevent and prosecute cyber crimes, including cyber stalking and non-consensual distribution of intimate images. Improving prevention, response to sexual violence, including through increased support for rape prevention, educational programs, sexual assault services programs, expansion for prevention of education in students and institutions of higher education, and enactment of fairness for rape kit blockage, um, backlogging, and survivor acts, which requires state victims compensation programs to allow SA assault survivors to file compensation without being unfairly penalized due to rape kit backlogging. So, what I was saying earlier was like when you do file these cases, um, within your legal aid office. They will send you home documents or they will mail them to you for your compensation. And so, you let them know, you've had to get this therapy, that therapy, this counseling, etc. And the perpetrator is required to compensate you for their bad behavior. Thank you so much, Arkansas. Strengthening the application of evidence based on practice by law enforcement in responding to gender based violence, including by promoting the use of trauma informed victim centered training and improving the homicide reduction initiatives. Improving the healthcare system's response to domestic violence and SA, including throughout the enhanced training for SA forensic examiners. They really, really, really did need that. They needed because the forensic examiners that do forensic interviews um, or forensic exams really, really needed that little bit of, extra knowledge on exactly what to look for. A lot of things have passed, beyond doctors, like they wouldn't even have picked it up. So I'm glad that they've really, been working on that part and getting them extra training. Enacting the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, NICS, Denial Notification Act to help state law enforcement investigate and prosecute cases against individuals legally prohibited from purchasing firearms who try to do so. Over the past year, the Biden Harris administration has taken significant steps to prevent and respond to gender based violence in the home and abroad. Increased funding for domestic violence and sexual assault services directed is 1 billion in supplemental funding for domestic violence and sexual assault services through the American Rescue Plan, the ARP, in response to the pandemic, including 49.5 million for culturally specific communities based organizations that help survivors from historically being marginalized in marginalized communities access to services and support that they need. The ARP also provided approximately 70,000 housing choice vouchers to local public housing authority in order to assist individuals and families, including those who are fleeing or attempting to flee from domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking. So there's also been a reform military justice system to address sexual assault harassment and related crimes within the National Defense Authorization Act. There's also been an ended forced arbitration for sexual assault and harassment signed into law, ending forced arbitration and sexual assault and sexual harassment act of the 2021. So there's been quite a few changes that have been coming through legislation to help victims of domestic violence, whether it's emotional, physical, or, financial. Thank you so much, Arkansas, for posting those for me. I greatly appreciate it. You are on top of your game. Mwah. I've missed you. So if anyone has any other questions or concerns, feel free to email me at Tainted Ink Inc. TAINTEDINKINC at gmail.com. I will be signing off. Thank you all for joining me. My next stream will be going over all of the laws and how you can get assistance through your local legal aid service, um, your legal aid office, and the services that they have. I do believe in one of my past streams, I did post for every state the number for your attorney general's office, who can also help you, locate your local offices. You too, Arkansas. Thank you so much. You all have a great day. Mwah.